Let's bring in Fast Money friend Gene Munster, partner at Loop. Gene, good to see you. To what
Melissa,
do you attribute this 3% move in the after hours in your view?
I think it's a nod to really the core truth here. It's always several layers below the surface. In this case, it was the DAU number up 7% year over year. It was a fraction of a miss, still up 7% year over year. That is consistent with how DAUs grew before the pandemic for the previous few years. And so essentially what you have is, I think, investors recognizing something that your traders talked a lot about in the last couple of days, is this dynamic where there is no other place to go beyond Facebook. I think that is the simple reason why it's up. The guidance, 5% below where the street was at. That does compare to Snap. Just for the December, they guided 12% below, so it wasn't as bad. But as your traders pointed out, that was largely expected. I do think the core here is just around that DAU number. It's unprecedented. It's something that we quickly talk about. It's something that no other company has, a global directory, 2 billion daily active users. This is something that advertisers can't live without. And I think what it is also a nod to is these issues around whether it's the macro or IDFA. All those issues are largely going to be transitory. They may last 2 quarters, 4 quarters. But eventually, investors, I think, will move on back to that core insight, the core value that Facebook has, which is that continuing to grow DAU number. It just blows me away.
Hey, Gene, it's Jeff Mills. Good to talk to you again. I know that I talk about it a lot. You bring it up a lot. We talked about it just recently here, but it's the Metaverse concept, and I'm a big believer in it. I know you said basically it's going to be as big as the internet. Talk to me a little bit about Facebook, though, in terms of it being a centralized platform, and then everybody talking about Web 3.0, which is really going to be built on decentralization. I've heard this narrative that maybe Facebook isn't best set up for the Web 3.0 dynamic as it relates to things like the Metaverse. Any comments on that concept?
Well, I think it starts with what is the Metaverse, and I can say that we frequently talk to people at the largest companies and some of the startups, and across the board, everyone has a different view of what the Metaverse is. I think the best way to think about what the Metaverse is that it is trying to describe the Metaverse today and Web 3.0, the future of the internet, all of that. I think, for me, misses the mark. I think about this as trying to describe the internet in 1992. I would have described it something like they're computers that are connected to each other, a network of computers for messaging, something to that effect. And of course, it's evolved to be much more. And so I think this Metaverse piece is something that is significant. I've talked about it as something that concerns me, just in terms of where, as humans, we're going to be interacting. But then again, I'm old. I'm 50. I'm going to be part of the past. And so the reality is, if you're under 20 years old, you're going to want to engage in the Metaverse. So to answer your question is, the Metaverse is a huge deal. I think Facebook has a ton of flaws. I think that their products don't make us better off. That's an understatement. But I do think that what the company is doing, as hard as it is for me to say it, I think the reality is what they're doing is building a future that a lot of people want to be a part of, and they're going to be a connecting point to that and build investor value along the way.
So, Gene, I'm wondering if you think breaking out the business FRL as a separate area where you can see the growth and track the growth and the return on the investment, if this is sort of Facebook's way of saying, you will see the growth here and we're going to prove it to you by actually making the structural change.
I think it's their way of saying we're going to spend a lot around this and we want to get a pass on our core, on our valuation. Just don't look over here. As you said, Melissa, it's a page out of Google and there are other bets. This gives them free reign to basically spend as much as they want. What we're seeing with Apple and IDFA, this is the exact reason why Facebook doesn't like Apple, is because they are beholden to Apple's devices. I think Apple, I believe strongly, I think that's the best of all things to own. Incredible company, great upside here. I don't think Facebook and Apple see eye to eye. And I think what you're seeing with this breakout of Reality Labs is Facebook laying the gauntlet down and saying that they want to take on, whether it's Apple or Google or Samsung, they want to be a big player. They want to control their destiny when it comes to the Metaverse. And I understand what they're doing, and I think that it's probably going to work by breaking this out. I think investors are going to say, thank goodness they're spending 10, 20, 15 billion, whatever the number is on the metaverse, can't spend enough on it, and give them a pass.
All right, Gene, thank you. Keep us posted if there are any developments on the call. Gene Munster of Loop Ventures.
Will do.
Should investors, Dan, give Facebook a pass? If that's really the reason to break out all the spending and say, you know what, that's FRL, that's not our core business. So give us a free pass here. Is that right? Yeah. Should investors do that?
Well, if you were an investor buying tobacco 25 years ago, then you're buying, Facebook right here because you see all those opportunities. It's really interesting that Mills, our resident millennial here, is asking, Boomer Gene about the metaverse here. And I just don't believe. Go read every science fiction book that deals with the metaverse, and they've been around for decades here. There is an evil villain trying to lord over a centralized platform and profit from it. I mean, literally, you can't write this stuff, or they actually did write this stuff. So I just don't believe that Mark Zuckerberg is going to be the lord of the metaverse here, and they can spend as many billions as they want trying to put lipstick on a pig here, but they're going to be decentralized platforms that are going to bring this new kind of technology. I think this kind of decentralized world where crypto is the currency of it, and all this other stuff that's really interesting in VR and all this other stuff. But I just don't really believe it's going to be Facebook. Or
it's Zuckerberg, Tim, thinking we will be disintermediated sometime in the future. So we're going to skate to where the puck is going. We're going to go to the metaverse. We're going to go to the decentralized platform in Web 3.0 instead of focusing solely on the core business right now.
Yeah, they're taking your eye off, first of all, where the ball is for them now and where there's a lot of pressure. First of all, this is smart, and they're focusing on the future. They're focusing on an area where I think they have a lot of opportunity, and I think they're far ahead of everybody else. So they can spend a lot here. And in fact, again, think about where people are rewarded for CapEx. That's the point here. That's why the stock's rallying. We're not concerned about the impact to operating margin, the $10 billion hit. They told you about the stock's rallying on that. That's exactly the point.
I like that theory, Guy. I think you do too. Shiny object. Look over here, folks. Don't look over there where the problems are. Forget about the iOS change. Forget about regulatory pressures. Forget about the harm people say we inflict upon various demographics of society. We've got the metaverse going.
Right. Being the least bright and the most easily distracted in the group, it definitely appeals to me without question. I think, I think they're going to be rewarded for this kind of investment, because if it winds up being as important as Gene thinks it will be, then it's a small investment to make. And listen, I totally get what Dan is saying, but you can't argue with the numbers. I mean, they probably have, 38% of the world's population, or some ridiculous number, is on Facebook in one way, shape, or form. That's a pretty insurmountable lead they seem to have if, in fact, the metaverse is going to be as big as the internet.